Hi, this is RamDev Dale Borglum. As you know, I'm the director of the Living Dying Project. And in that capacity, I work with so many people who have life-threatening illnesses who are reaching out for spiritual support. Today, I'd like to tell you about one of my recent clients, a young man named Mason. He had a brain tumor diagnosed when he was about 12 years old. It was not a fast-growing tumor, it was a slow-growing one, and Mason ended up going to UCLA. But then in about 2020, his tumor started coming back and he had to drop out of college. He came back here to Marin, and the doctors said he had some problems. The tumor was growing, and his family reached out to me. So Mason and I began a friendship, and he was a remarkable young man. It was, in a way, the idea was that I was there to help him, but in fact, I was getting so much out of being with Mason. One of the things we do is we would go to downtown San Anselmo and sit in front of a coffee shop, a pastry shop. Mason couldn't eat anything with gluten in it because of his brain tumor and some sensitivities that he had. So we sat in front of this gluten-free pastry shop drinking coffee and eating pastry, and people would be walking up and down on the sidewalk, and he treated each person walking up and down the sidewalk as if they were his best friend. He couldn't talk too well because the brain tumor was affecting his speech, but even in his limited speech, Mason would reach out to these people, and many of them knew Mason because he'd been doing this over the last year or so. And it was so beautiful the way he knew there was a very good chance he wasn't going to be in his body that much longer. And yet he was the most loving, open person on the street. At the same time, when we were in private, he and I would explore how afraid he was of dying. He was 21 years old. He didn't want to die. He wanted to have a normal lifespan. So we talked about dying, and one of the main things we did is we meditated together. I guided Mason into the spaciousness of the mind, that place beyond fear. Often we'd sit in this little park in downtown San Anselmo where George Lucas has put statues of Yoda and Indiana Jones. So there we were meditating with Yoda and Indiana Jones, if you can picture that. And Mason just loved to meditate. Eventually, he wasn't well enough to go out. He wasn't well enough to go to the park. He wasn't well enough to even sit up and meditate. I would come to his home. He was the only client I was seeing during the pandemic. Everybody else was via Zoom, but we had such a connection that I would come there and everybody was masked, and I would still guide Mason in meditation. Toward the end of his life, he was ready to die. His body was working so poorly that he was saying, when can I get out of here? When can I leave? It seemed that he had worked through a lot of his fear. And then, of course, eventually he did die. I really have to say that I try to love all of my clients, and yet there was something special about Mason, so that maybe if you have a bunch of children, you love them all equally, but one of them is your favorite. But so Mason was my favorite over the last long period of time. And I feel that he's up there blessing me and all of us. So anyway, that's the story with Mason. Doing this work is just a blessing. I hope that you can have a chance yourself sometime to accompany someone as they're on this sacred journey. Thank you so much.